everybody for being here today. My name is Kyle Haugen. I'm from the Rotary Club Prior Lake, Minnesota, and am the public image coordinator for zones 25B and 29, which are the 23 districts through the middle of the United States, and about 5 clubs in Canada as well. So that's where we're located, and we're excited to have everybody here today for this for the first of our public image webinars for the 22-23 Rotary year. We did many of these last year, and excited to bring them back. If you could, just a couple of housekeeping notes real quick. If you want to make sure you're muted, that'd be great, just to for the respect of everybody else. We're going to go for about an hour, maybe an hour and 5 minutes today. Try to get you out as close to 5 o'clock Central Time, at least, as possible. And from there, I think those are a couple of those things. I'll touch on a couple more things as we go. We're excited about these webinars as it's a way to have regular contact with all of you. And I say we because, well, I'm the public image coordinator for zones 25B and 29. We have a full public image team, as you can see on the screen. That is a group of assistant coordinators as well, located throughout our 23 districts, essentially from Minnesota and Wisconsin down to Texas. You'll hear from a number of these team members today as they're here, and they're going to share a couple thoughts at different times. And Sean Berry, one of our assistants, who is very good from a technical aspect. He's handling a lot of the background things, I think, unless Sean just accidentally disappeared. I'm not sure what happened there. But so that's who we are. We are, as I said, excited about these webinars because they're a really good way for us to have regular contact with all of you, and all of you being anything from sitting district governors to district governor line future leaders to other district leaders in the public image sphere or anything else, and then on down to club leaders and club members. It's really open for everybody because I think this information is useful to anyone. So it's a way for us all to have regular contact with all of you and to deliver information that's useful and topical, and a way to go deeper on information rather than just having to try to do one information dump when some of us are together physically in a place where not all of us could be there, and trying to give all that information, which it's information overload. Let's do it in a way that's really spread out over time. So each month our webinars do a few different things. We share examples of how public image works together with members, but it's a way we can share examples on how public image works together with membership and the Rotary Foundation to increase our success in all of those areas, and showcasing best practices that any of our district public image teams are doing, so we can learn from each other, and having a deep dive into one particular topic. One of the other things we'll do is some announcements, a few this month. Check out the public image page on our Rotary Zone website, which I will put the link in the chat right now. But this is a link to our resource library on our Zone webpage, and that has all sorts of great information, little tips and tricks, one-page handouts. And it's also a place where we keep the recordings of all of these webinars, and last year's are on there too. And not only do we send out the big recording, but we'll split it up so that just the deep dive part will be recorded. We'll have it separate recording, and just the best practices part. So if you ever want, you can just go and watch those. So also our Zone public image team is here to help. If you need us to assist with any idea generations, team meetings, training sessions, that's what our job is. And while we are trying to be as proactive as possible in reaching out to you, we aren't mind readers. So feel free to reach out to us as well. And certainly we're in the middle of PETS planning season, and district conference season is right around the corner. So if you'd like us to help with anything there, please let us know. On a Rotary calendar part of things, we have the next month is Rotary's birthday in February. It's a great time to showcase your club or district in your community. Tell people your stories, what you've accomplished, the impact you've had. It's like kind of like a birthday present to the world from us, even though it's our birthday. And so please think about what you can do to promote Rotary on our, I think it's our 118th birthday here on February 23rd. Next Thursday, I know some of you have seen this, but some of our members of our public image team will be joining. We're taking the show on the road, so to speak, and we'll be helping District 626 or 6220 in Wisconsin for their monthly Rotary Education webinar, where we'll be talking about leveraging social media platforms to promote clubs and Rotary. That's Thursday, February 2nd, from 5 o'clock to 5:45. And I'm going to throw a link in the chat if you'd like to attend that. They said the more the merrier. So we'll be on the road, but it's good information there as well. So now that I got some announcements out of the way, we'll get started. And before I do that, I'd like to mention to everybody that that we will have time for Q&A at the end of this. So if you have a question along the way for any of our presenters, shoot a message to me in the chat, and I'll coordinate that Q&A at the end. And as I mentioned, we're recording the sessions, so we'll have those as well, and we'll send all of the recording links and any other pertinent information to you in a follow-up email, and then store them on our website as well. So with that, we have several segments today. We're going to start with a brief overview of the public image section of our Regional Rotary Challenge, which some of you may be familiar with if you're in any sort of district leadership in our zones, but some may not. But I think all of you will see some different activities that you can implement in your clubs and district here. After that, we will touch on some tips and tricks on how best to use the Rotary President's annual theme, which was just introduced to the district governors-elect at the International Assembly. Then our public image team members will share a few of their favorite best practices that our districts are doing. And finally, we'll move into our deep dive for the month, which I'm excited about, the power of storytelling, featuring documentarian Paul Friedman, he's an Emmy and Peabody Award winner. So it's pretty cool that he's here with us today to talk about that. At the end, as I said, we'll have some time for Q&A and open discussion and get out of here right around 5 o'clock or a few minutes after. So with that, on with the show, and we'll talk a little bit about the Regional Rotary Challenge. And this is something that we've put together. Our regional leadership put this challenge together as a way to provide our districts with a roadmap to really establish successful practices throughout their districts so they can create and maintain lasting success. This challenge is essentially split into 4 areas: membership, Polio Plus, the Rotary Foundation, and public image. And each of those categories, each area has several different categories and activities that districts should work to implement. And just to create a little added motivation, we do have some competitive parts of this, and it's a different level of competitiveness depending on what the district wants to do. So in each of the areas, zone leadership will recognize districts for their achievements, and there will be several different ways we do that. Number one, there are several activities in each category. So if a district completes all the activities in each section, they get the regional citation in that area, meaning public image or Rotary Foundation or membership, so on and so forth. If they want to go a little bit above and beyond that, if they achieve that regional citation in all 4 areas, the membership, polio, public image, and foundation, they're an all-star district. And then if you are really competitive and if you want to make sure your district has the most activities completed, they'll be the district of the year in that category, and the best overall cumulative performance will be the zone district of the year. Today, I'm not going to go through all 4 areas because, that's for a different time. But let's talk real quickly about the public image areas. And here are the public image categories, the 7 of them. And I think these are activities that clubs and districts can utilize to create habits. that will lead to success over time. You see the 7 categories on the screen, and I'm going to rush through this a little bit because, like I said, we'll send out the slides and the full challenge brochure afterwards. But in each category, there's several different activities listed that you can implement, and and same can be said for clubs as well. So in the public image team makeup, certainly having a team as part of your rather than a team of one, but having a lot of people working together is going to lead to more success. And these are some of the things at a district level, but they can certainly be tweaked for a club. I mean, identifying roles and responsibilities of public image team members, certainly something that can be done at a club level as well. Category 2, the training and communication side of things. How do we, at the zone level, we're trying to talk to district leaders, but then it's on the district leaders to turn around and talk to club leaders and club members to get them understanding more about public image. And so getting a team leader, having training workshops and other things there are certainly things that will help elevate the understanding and action with people as it relates to public image. Category 3, brand consistency, certainly an important thing to all be working together. And I have to tell you, this is one that I spent quite a bit of time on as public image coordinator with clubs asking about, is this logo correct? Is it not? And there's a wealth of information on the brand center at rotary.org that can really get through a lot of that. Social media usage. Again, great and inexpensive way to communicate with your members. These are some of the activities that we're doing, and in the chat link, well, there's a great way to learn more about social media with that registration for the District 6220 webinar next week, which is essentially a way to help clubs with their social media usage. Also, communication with clubs, members, and the public. It's not accidental, but we need to be intentional about how we communicate, not just with the public, but with our own members as well, because they're the ones that, the more engaged our members are, they're going to be able to go out and do more in terms of talking with people in their circles, which are going to recruit more people into Rotary. So how do we have consistent communication with clubs, members, and the public? Partnerships are important as well, not only internally, but externally too. So, you know, how are the membership, public image, and foundation teams within your club or within your district working together? How are you working with other clubs within your district, or how are you working with other districts too? And on top of that, you know, just any other ways of going about it with outside organizations as well. So again, partnerships are key. And then the wonderful little catch-all number 7 being other. The more you can do there, number of different things in terms of goals and making presentations to clubs or districts and identifying, you know, Rotary Days of Service, promoting our polio efforts, things like that. So as you can see here, and I'm going to stop sharing this for a minute. As you can see, these are things, it's a great way to help districts and clubs be intentional about their activities. And when we're intentional about things and we're making plans to do things, we're going to have greater success in the future because we have a plan. You don't travel to California and just hop in the car and start driving. You look at a map or you plug it into your phone now. But if you have a plan, you're going to get to where you want to go. In December, we surveyed all of the districts on some of the key activities here, and they're all doing great things. In fact, it was even, we got responses from all 23 districts, which thank you to all of you that did that, which was great. And a lot of our districts are implementing the things that we hope they would, and more to come on that survey in a few minutes. Shifting gears though for a minute, you may be aware that Rotary International's International Assembly took place earlier this month, and I know there's a few people on this call that were there when we when this unveiling happened that we're going to talk about now. But the International Assembly, or the IA as it's called, is a time where all 500 plus district governors to be come together for their training before taking over as district governor on July 1st. One of the highlights of this every year is when the incoming Rotary International president unveils his or her theme for the coming year. And this year was no exception, as President elect Gordon McInally uh, unveiled his theme, which is create hope in the world. And it's a great theme and will serve us well, but there's generally some uncertainty regarding how to use this theme. So, here to share a few tips on the proper usage is one of our assistant public image coordinators, Gretchen Noman. Gretchen, are you still with us? I know you're
Yep, I'm here.
traveling. There you are. And then I will. I think Sean's back, but I'm going to spotlight this for everybody anyway.
Yay.
So they unveiled this logo a couple of weeks ago, but before everybody just runs to use it right now, when should this logo be used?
So you should not make it totally public, obviously, until the year July 1 of 2023 starts. The recommendation, though, for PI, as you're getting ready for, you'll see it on your NC Pets. You might see it on some districts do a spring assembly. You might see the logo at that time, but you officially don't want to start using it until July 1 of 2023.
Sure. So really, if you're doing any training for incoming people that are going to take over for next year, it's totally okay. But to put it on a club website or a district website or as your Facebook logo, you're saying, wait on that one.
Correct.
President Jennifer still wants her theme out for the rest of this Rotary year. Imagine Rotary is a good one. Let's let it have its time. Yeah, a minute ago, I showed two versions of the logo, and I'll share this again. There's a horizontal version and a vertical version. How should each of those be used?
Yep. So the horizontal one is one that's been made up that goes along with your specific club logo, your district logo. And that's the only time that you're supposed to partner up with that. The vertical logo would be something that you could put out as your Facebook profile. You could put it out that way. You can put it up at the top of a header of a page or within a PowerPoint. But the one that's horizontal is the one that was created to put alongside your club or your district logo.
Sure. Yeah. So, and if you are using the vertical logo, you should make sure that it has you have the Rotary logo somewhere in close proximity is what they say there as well. So, and that when you put the club or district logo next to it, that's considered the logo lockup version. And just where can somebody go to make that logo lockup?
You can go out to the branding center and do that, where you can create your own club's logo, your district logo. You can make that up with the new theme, download all the information you need for that year's theme logo.
Perfect. Thank you. And that logo lockup, Rotary has made it really easy with the brand center. Number one, if you just even Google Rotary Brand Center, it's going to take you there. You don't need to have. Hey, thanks, Ching. There it is. There it is as well. But you don't need to have any. You don't need to sign in or anything from that capacity. It's just there. And they'll walk you through it so it's a compliant logo. And we'll also put together a short video of how to create that logo lockups and have that in our resource library as well. Before we get to our deep dive, I want to take a few minutes to bring our public image team members forward to get some of their favorite best practices that we're hearing from from some of the districts. Where do we find these? I mentioned a minute ago that we did a brief survey in December of the district public image chairs and district governors to see how they were doing with activities in the Regional Rotary Challenge. As a follow-up, I asked them two questions. What are they doing well in their districts, and what do they need help with? And we built a really good list of things that they are doing well, which we're in the process of developing attractive list, not the 6-page a Word doc that I have, but we're developing that. But since we're having this webinar, we figured to briefly share our favorite ideas and give a sneak peek on what some of our districts are doing. And we'll start in Kansas and Nebraska and South Dakota, but he's really in Nebraska. He just oversees the districts that do those. And that's Scott McLaughlin, one of our public image coordinators there. And Scott, what was your favorite idea that a district's doing? Which district was it? And tell me a little bit about that real quick.
Hey, Kyle. Thanks. It was from District 6420. And basically what they did is they said that they did this during their district conference. And I thought this was a great place to do it. You can also do it at PETS, or you could do it at an assembly, but you could do it anywhere that you had groups of people together where you can benefit from training, I guess you might say. What they did is they had a booth set up. The public image staff there had a booth set up at the district conference, and they focused on two specific areas. One was the brand center education. So in other words, where is the brand center? How can you use it? And then they used it also for recruitment of public image committee members. Now, you talked about having a team, and having a team is so much more important than trying to do it all on your own. And so take advantage of sharing the public image commitment from Rotary down to the district and the club level people so they know what's going on. What they did is they set up 2 computers, and then they introduced people directly to the brand center. They showed them how to create their branded master brand logos, their lockups. And it became a very simple thing to do. The last thing that they said is they used that opportunity to find people to join their team as the way to build for succession planning. So I thought it was a very interesting way to do it.
Yeah, we get stuck in this, let's send an email and hopefully people respond, and we forget about actually going and meeting with people and making sure that we're thinking about things that way. And absolutely, that was a great way to do it. Thanks, Scott, for clarifying or for passing that along. Now we'll go back to Gretchen, and Gretchen, what did you come up with in terms of a favorite answer?
Yep. So I'm going to kind of piggyback on to Scott. I also liked from District 6420. And what I liked about it is that they had 3 different training sessions with topics that included the brand center, club runner website usage, social media, what the PI goals would be, press release training, just different things, getting them ready to go for the following year so that they are doing the right things and telling that story correctly for Rotary.
Thanks, Gretchen. Yeah, and doing those training sessions again, it's kind of like we're doing now, is a way to connect with our members and meet them where they are so they can learn more. Yeah, that's a great one. Let's go to my northern backyard here, and I think he's here now because Gretchen's video just got the spotlight taken off, and I didn't do it. So, Sean Barry.
So my best practice is to start a podcast. This can gain a following with Rotarians and also non-Rotarians about information about your club, your districts, and about your events and your service projects. District 5960 and 5950 started a podcast called Searching for Service. It's also aired on 9:50 a.m. on Sunday afternoons. Contact your local FM and AM radio stations to see if they have any open airtime for nonprofits available. Keep it shorter than an hour to keep your audience's attention. And that Searching for Service website should be coming soon.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And I know District 5710 in Kansas does a podcast as well. And I like the fact that 5950 and 5960 are working together on that one. So not only is it doing something, but it's a partnership with a different district. It's like one of those things in the challenge documents that we talked about. Amber Scarborough, one of our assistants from Texas, couldn't be here today, but she wanted to pass along an idea that just came up recently. Yesterday, she had one of her districts that she supports ask about a job description for their public image chair in the district, and she put out a text to our public image team, and Sean provided one for his district, 59 and 60, and she thought it was very well done. And not only did she pass it along to that district, but she's going to use it in her own district as well. So having things like a job description, and we'll make sure to put a few examples on the resource library. Great things there. And finally, we'll bounce over to, I think she's in Wisconsin. She lives in Wisconsin, but I'm not sure because I know she's somewhere else today. And hear from Julie Craig. Julie, what's the best idea you saw from the list that came out from everybody?
Hi, I'm at a virtual thing in Charleston, South Carolina, so I apologize for the talking. I have to tape a talk here tomorrow in their studio. So what I wanted to share as best practices, it always makes me think of Patrick because I think he does a great job PRing it every time we see him at the public image things. But that said, people always think that public image is just social media. And I think the thing that you have to remember is that it's more than just social media, and that your public image actually starts the minute you walk into that Rotary meeting. And so it's asking yourself that question of, what is the vibe and what is the feeling and what is that brand that your club is giving off, right? Is the environment welcoming? Are the people welcoming? What are the messages that are being sent by that environment that you're meeting in and by how the people are greeting and treating one another? So I love just remembering that best practice of being conscious about that. So thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Julie. Have fun in South Carolina. It's better than Minneapolis today at 10 degrees. And that's so true because, public image is not marketing. It's not PR. It's the perceptions that people have of us and we have of ourselves. So things like, what does your meeting look like? What's the look and feel of your meeting? All of those things play into it. And the stories we tell, see what I did there for 5 seconds from now, those all play in as well. So thanks to all of our assistants for their thoughts. And we hope that at least one of those ideas stood out as something you can implement in your club and district. And as I mentioned previously, we're working on putting together some documents that we can send to all of you with a full list in the near future. So now we're going to transition to our deep dive for the month. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a way to go deeper on a particular topic of interest. Rather than try to tackle this and everything else when we're in person, it allows us to spend a little bit more time on a topic without overloading you. And we can include more people as well, including our presenter today. So when we think about public image in Rotary, as I just said, it's about enhancing the perception the public has of us and what our members have of us. And one of the best ways to show what we do is through the stories that we have. After all, stories are memorable, and they create an emotional reaction that make people want to be involved in some way or another. And today we have an expert in storytelling with us, and I think we'll all be able to learn something that makes us more effective in our efforts to promote Rotary. Earlier this fall, I had the opportunity to, the honor and opportunity to represent Rotary President Jennifer Jones as president's rep at the District 5160 conference in Monterey, California, which I know there's some of the people from that district here, including District Governor Suzanne. One of the other speakers was our guest today. And as Paul and I chatted after a session where we both spoke, I asked him if he'd be willing to share his expertise about storytelling, and here we are today. So a little bit about Paul before we get into some of these questions. Paul Friedman is an Emmy and Peabody Award-winning film director, producer, writer, and editor. His passion is human rights, and his mission is to give a voice to those who have none. His films have covered an array of subjects and issues, from performance artists in London to battlefields in the South Pacific and to the conflicts of modern Africa. He's interviewed presidents and Nobel laureates, genocidaires, and peacemakers. His films have tried to make a difference. Rwanda, Do Scars Ever Fade, which I told him I finished last night, about the genocide and its painful aftermath, won a Peabody Award and was nominated for 2 Emmys. Sand and Sorrow, executive produced and narrated by George Clooney, was broadcast on HBO and raised awareness about the genocide in Darfur, while Halfway Home, about American servicemen and women coping with combat PTSD, brought attention to the plight of suffering vets here at home. One Last Hug, 3 Days at Grief Camp, an HBO film about children coping with death of a parent, was awarded a Primetime Emmy. And Mercy Congo explored the work of human rights activists here and in the troubled Democratic Republic of Congo. It was released in 2016 and aired on Viceland. Paul's most recent film, The Dirty Divide, is an intimate look into the lives of houseless people living in LA's Skid Row. Paul is from the Bay Area and holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from San Francisco State University. He currently lives in Los Angeles, is married, and a devoted father of two. So, Paul, thank you so much for being here today. It was a pleasure hearing you speak a couple months ago, and I'm excited to bring your knowledge east, I guess, from the Bay Area and LA.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Go
you're
ahead.
welcome. I just read a little bit of your bio, but can you share how and why you got into documentary filmmaking?
Yeah, I've been wondering the same thing myself. As documentary filmmakers, we're kind of the Hollywood bottom feeders. What we do is I believe is important work and often recognized, but we're not the we don't have the big fancy red carpet rollouts and the glitzy cars and we don't have the Hollywood glitter and glam. That said, I came down here a number of years ago, and I became a film editor. Started at the bottom and worked my way up to a film editor. From there, I became a commercial director and realized that while it was good living, something was missing. I had an opportunity to do some documentary work from an editorial standpoint, and I really enjoyed it. And I discovered that the reason why I enjoyed it is I am, while I'm not an academic, I do enjoy reading. I'm curious by nature. I love to connect. I'm sure we all know we've sat on an airplane with that man or woman next to us who just won't shut up. They keep asking. That's me. I love to query people, connect, and talk. I realize that this is, while it's not a prerequisite for getting into documentary filmmaking, it sure can help. A documentary filmmaker has to be able to reach out, talk to people, win people's trust, and conduct interviews that can be brought back to the cutting room where the ultimate storytelling is told throughout in the words of the film. So I love the medium. It exercises all my creative muscles. Particularly the love I have of storytelling and reading. And I believe that through storytelling, and particularly in documentary films, we can reach an audience by moving them. If you don't move somebody, you can give them all the academic and scientific and technological information in the world, but if they aren't moved or compelled to action, you really haven't done anything except make a presentation. And that's not what I want to do. So I hope that answers the question. I've been doing it a long time. I did enjoy our time in Monterey. It was a great weekend. And I see some friends on, Evie and Debbie and Diane and the Mays, everybody up in the Bay Area. I've been deeply involved with Regional Rotary in trying to get a library built in the Democratic Republic of the Congos. And they've been incredibly helpful, as are Rotarians in general. So thank you very much for having me.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. And you touched on it a little bit there, but you're an expert storyteller, so you have, you can provide this answer well, but why is telling stories so important?
Well, I wasn't born an expert storyteller. I know that. And I think we all, while we can't define it, we know a good story when we read it or see it, watch it, hear it. I believe that stories are what make us move and what compel us to action. I believe that stories make our lives fuller and more present for each other because they connect us. Without stories, we don't have a lot of the magic that we experience in the world, whether it be a movie or the story within a musical within a musical composition. Storytelling in fine art. I mean, they're all subtle versions of the same thing, but they move us. They speak to us, and they help complete us in our journey on this spinning globe. And I believe that you learn how to tell stories by telling them. There's certain ways to do it. You can get good at it. You can tell it in your own way. You can leave people flat and unimpressed. But we all tell stories. We don't know we're doing it, but we all do it. So.
Absolutely. And you keep giving me these great transitions to the next questions. It's like you had the questions in advance or something.
As if.
And like you're an editor or something like that. But, when we think about stories, what are the elements of a good story as you look at them?
Yeah, I think it goes with what is the goal of a good story? First of all, the goal of a story, really, in its most simplistic form, is to have somebody finish it. That's what I believe. I mean, there's nothing worse than for me to put one of my films up, or a short promo piece I do that is a story of something for somebody, and somebody just kind of partway through it, you can tell they check out, they tune out. When I tell my own story, like right now, people are tuning out. When I tell people what I do, my story, my personal ability to tell a story, if I can't finish and hold you, I mean, then I have nothing. So, I mean, the goal is to have somebody finish the book, finish the movie, finish the poem, finish the song. That said, the elements of a story boil down to emotional connection to the reader, the viewer, the listener. That is absolutely the most important element. So I think when we try to tell our own stories, or when we try to sit down and write something, write a letter, compose a song, what are we drawing from? Where is our impulse coming from? Is it an impulse to inform, or is it an impulse to move and to compel? Now, if they're two separate things in our mind, how do we fuse them? How do we join them to do a really effective storytelling? Inform somebody and compel them at the same time to move.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people get stuck sometimes on filling in all the small details that are the things that people lose interest on. In fact, I like that thought of, you want the story to end somewhere, and you like it to have a happy ending, typically, where people are able to have that connection and stay engaged. One of my best friends, so if he's telling a bad story or something, he'll always end it with, "And then I found $5," because every story that ends with somebody finding money is a good story. So it's a good way to end it. The ... and then I found $5. So, but yeah, it really, finding that emotional connection. And what are some of the strategies that you use to find those emotional pieces or other key elements to ensure you have the best content? So how do you go about finding that content that goes into a good story?
Yeah, it's that's a great question, and is probably the key to me doing good work for myself. And as a documentary filmmaker, perhaps the most enjoyable part of the whole process is the research that leads up to just going out and turning the camera on. If I'm expecting to learn everything just from the process of looking through a viewfinder and pressing record, I'm missing a lot. So I think whenever we set out to tell a story, and whether it's to sit down or write a letter, or to compose a song or a film or a book or a poem, we really need to understand, what is it that we want to say? What is it that we want to convey? Am I conveying my own story, or am I telling my mom's story? Because I feel it's important to tell my mom's story. Is it the story of a little organization that could, somewhere out in the Smoky Mountains, that's doing great work, or is it the story that I'm making up about a superhero? I need to understand what I'm trying to convey. So, let me just equate this to my work. I've taught a number of courses in documentary filmmaking. When the teacher needs to learn, the pupil are sent. I really believe that. So I've set out to really try to lay it out to students that when I am creating a story, the story part is only one element of it. There's three sort of, if you turn a bar stool upside down, it's got three legs. The first leg is the theme. What do I want to say? What is this about? That's really key. If I don't know what this is about, then my story around it means nothing. It has nothing to really hang on to. And the second thing is, where's the point of view? Is the point of view coming from myself? Is it my point of view, or is it somebody else's point of view? Am I telling it from a third person? Am I telling it from another interesting angle? I really need to understand what is the point of view of what I'm trying to say. And the third is that story itself, because the story is what does the heavy lifting for these other two things. There's lots of ways that's why it's some people call it an art form, but there's lots of ways to work that, to paint that picture, to create that song. But I always start with, what do I want to say? What's the theme? Even if it's my own story, even if it's if I'm gonna like when we got up at the podium in Monterey, we have to come out, we have to grab somebody, we have to hook them so they pay attention. So what is this about? What am I going to get up and try to say now? How do I want to connect with somebody? What's thematically, what am I about to tell? And that is the biggest jumping off point. And we talked about, and I think you're going to ask me some questions about this later, about particularly how we relate this back to Rotary. And if you don't mind me jumping ahead for a moment,
no, go for it.
That I spoke to so many Rotarians, and I had such a great time that not only in Monterey but other events that I've gone to. And I always ask folks why they, how they became a Rotarian. So without thinking about it, I'm giving an opportunity to Rotarians to tell their story, because I think it's really, in retrospect, I think it's very important that we all understand, or that particularly Rotarians understand, that when you're telling your story, you're offering up a glimpse to someone who may or may not join Rotary. So how do you grab somebody in the first moment? What is the hook that we're going to use to make this interesting and concise? What is it about? Go ahead. Let's keep pushing.
No, that makes sense. And I want to go off a little bit here, but you're talking about trying to figure out what those themes are and the point of view. Your new film, The Dirty Divide, that's premiering next month at the Santa Barbara International Film Fest. You spent how long again on Skid Row?
I spent a long time. I was down there today, actually. It's become very near and dear to my heart and my soul. There's a certain beauty and resilience and hopefulness you find in our most vulnerable neighbors. To answer your question, I spent more than pushing 5 years now. The actual production of the film took more than 4. I made great friends down there, many who are gone now. It's been an incredible journey. All the journeys that I get to go on in my line of storytelling have been transformational because of my willingness and the necessity for me to connect with people. It's what nourishes me. It's what makes me want to get up in the morning. And I always think of myself as like a shy person. I know I'm not, but I require this nourishment of connection. And once I've let down those fears and I can go connect with folks, particularly in war-torn areas in Africa, or whether on the sidewalks of Skid Row, the stories that I find there, which aren't my own, I can cull other people's stories and gather them, and represent them in a concise and moving form later. That's what I wanted to
get to a little bit, because I know you mentioned when I heard you speak before. You spent 5 years at Skid Row, but that whole building rapport so you could get those stories from people, that didn't happen day one. And
No.
And I mean, what was that process of how long before you even turned a camera on, because you had to build that you had to get into the community so they trusted you before they would tell you the stories, or you could tell them for them.
Yeah. Exactly.
How long of a process was that?
Well, I was wherever I go, whether it's to Darfur or Congo, or the work I did here in the States, I always rely on somebody who knows the game better than I do. I have to. I can't march into a place that I've only done research and expect to be able to get people to respond to me the way that is necessary for me to conduct my production. So I find people who will give me access, who have access to the community that can in turn give it to me. So I relied on an organization that became one of the central aspects of the film, Los Angeles Community Action Network. They're located in Skid Row. They are community organizers who are sort of push back against the rather draconian laws that are force people to that disallow people from camping on the sidewalk when there's no place else to go. So this is what this organization basically does. I went with them. They took me around. I walked around Skid Row for weeks, talking to people without a camera. Then I walked around for another weeks with the camera, with the lens cap on. People, so they could see me with a camera. I'm a very white guy, and it's a mostly black area. I needed folks to understand that I was not there for exploitive purposes. I was there because I wanted to learn more, and you can't do that by going in there with cameras blazing, as they say. So by the end of the first month or 6 weeks, folks would stick their heads out of the tent and they say, "Hey, camera, when are you going to turn that damn thing on?" So finally, at that point, after a few people said that, I was able to felt a little more comfortable, a little more relaxed. Not everybody liked seeing a camera. Even years later, I got in a few scrapes. People, get that out of here, get that out of my face. But for the most part, people were welcoming. If you are willing to connect with folks, if you're willing to get in there and talk to them, and to not talk down to them, to be with them, folks will respond. Folks want to tell their stories. Folks really want to tell their stories. I know I do, and there's an impulse in all of us we want to talk about what our experience is, and I found that to be true wherever I go. I just have to lead that horse to water, as it were, get them to tell their stories because they want to.
Right. So when we're telling our own stories, or we're telling the story of somebody else, once we've made that connection, we have that content of a story. What are some tips you would give to this audience of amateurs and do-gooders and everything there, myself certainly included? What are some tips to make that story then as engaging as possible? How do we do that? And that goes to a comment on the chat here too. Mary in, I think, Maple Grove, Minnesota. But we tend to use our website for stories, and they need to be short. Sometimes telling the why can be difficult to keep it short. So I think that fits a little bit with how do you make a story as engaging as possible? Sure. Yeah. And again, I thought about this earlier today. I thought about how because I know Rotarians now, and I know I've got dear friends in the Moraga Club and other and clubs in Congo as well, and I know the importance of not only the Rotary story. I was lucky enough to meet Cliff Doctorman from Moraga Rotary Club, who was a big part of the polio campaign a long time ago, and he has a remarkable story. But he was a raconteur to begin with, so he's way ahead of all of us. But what he would do is he told the essence of the emotional story. Not the nuts and bolts, the factual story. He talked about the suffering of folks, of kids suffering from polio, of getting polio. What that did is it immediately went, huh? People wanted to hear that. They didn't want to hear about all the other stuff, the details. So I think when we sit around and we talk about ourselves, the most important thing, particularly, and I think if I was trying to present my story, it would be, and again, what is it thematically? What is the story I want to tell? So, for a Rotarian, to at an event or introducing themselves to prospective members, how can I best present my story in a way that covers the information, but also will allow me to finish, at least in my listener's eyes or my reader's eyes? Because I don't want to shake someone's hand and start telling the story and realize that, yeah, I've heard this all before. No, you want to finish. It needs to be that good. So it's basically a distillation. It's, what do I want to say? What is the theme of my story?
I joined because something moved me. And not the year, not the date, not the weeks, not the club or the what is it that it moved me? What is it? And maybe it's embarrassing as all get out, but things that move us are the things that we respond to. And so try writing it down, write it in a sentence. I mean, some of the, and I pulled this up a little while ago, and I'll just share a couple of them for you. But imagine yourself a famous movie. Imagine your life, Kyle. You're the movie. What's the Kyle story? And what we call this in filmmaking, and it's pretty specific to films, documentaries, and features. We call it a log line, LOGLINE. And essentially, what a log line does, it's a pitch. It's a one sentence, maybe two sentences at the most. It's kind of your elevator pitch. How I got 20 seconds with this guy to write me a check for $100 million to make this feature movie. That's not my experience, but I'm just giving you an example. This is the elevator pitch, and we call it a log.
But if anybody's on the call here today that wants to pay you $100 million,
wants to go
give them your email address,
or wants to go pitch their own movie to a Hollywood executive. But listen to this and tell me if you can guess what this log line is, because it's really good. So here it is. I'm going to read it to you. Several historical events from the 20th century unfold from the perspective of an Alabama man with an IQ of 75, whose only real desire is to reunite with his childhood sweetheart.
Oh, it's Forrest Gump.
Famous movie. What would that be?
Yeah, that's Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Yeah, I mean, the Forrest Gump was almost a 2-hour movie, but it's summed up in such a completely simple but compelling way. I mean, to reunite with his childhood sweetheart, it immediately gets you at the end. How about this one? During the civil rights movement of the 1960s, an aspiring author decides to write a book detailing the African-American maid's point of view on the white families for whom they work. It's a famous movie. It's The Help. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's a fantastic log line. It just tells you everything you need to know, about that film. How about this one? The aging patriarch of an organized crime dynasty transfers control of his clandestine empire to his reluctant son.
The Godfather.
One of the greatest movies ever made. The Godfather. Yep, absolutely. So they're single sentences that completely distill the story into a theme while still telling the story. So it's I'm not asking folks to, this is not a high wire act. This is strictly a case, and I would ask my students when I'm teaching to do this, is simply distill what you want to say down into the simplest possible form. And the best way to do that is to get it out. Sit down and lay it out in sentences. This is me. This is why I love what I'm doing in Rotary. This is why I joined Rotary. This is what I get from Rotary. I cried at a Rotary event because it moved me so much, and it was about this. Or I laugh with the connections I make with the people make me feel like this. I mean, get all these honest human reactions down on paper. And then you can put them into literally a 1 or 2 sentence thing about that's your story. And when I am able to present information as concise and as precise as this, I'm always set up for success when it comes to ultimately telling the story. Because what I've done is I've hooked somebody, I've got somebody's attention. And they go, oh, yeah, okay. I want to know more about this guy who's got a 75 IQ. I'd like to see that. Tell me more. So I think this is the key, is to really understand about how we can distill our stories into what we want to say about ourselves or our club or the situation in Los Angeles homeless community. So it's a long way to answer your short question.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think it answered about 4 of them here. So thank you. And it is, and it's taking your personal and making it appealing and emotive, and make sure you're showing your emotions and go from there. I want to step back real quick and focus on all of your work for a minute. You've done a lot of documentaries about powerful subjects and have worked on commercials, promotional campaigns, so on and so forth. Any favorite examples of that response you've gotten from people after? I mean, obviously, you want a response. We know kind of that. Here's what the theme is. Here's what I want my response to be. But any one or two of your favorite stories of responses you've gotten?
Sure. And I have to say, and to be completely honest about my skill set, is that I'm not the same storyteller I was when I made, for instance, the Rwanda film. That's 25 years ago. I'm a much better storyteller only because I've continued to do it.
Sure.
So I've had some. I've picked subjects, at least for documentary making, and again, I have to have a side job because documentary filmmaking does not pay well. So I do, as Kyle mentioned, other things to make money, and they all have to do with doc making. In other words, somebody will call me and say, I have this organization, we want to promote its good works, and we need something that looks like and smells like and sounds like a documentary. Are you interested? Yes, and of course, I'm always interested. So I do that type of work to pay my rent. However, my doc making, my filmmaking comes from subject matter that I feels like I just can't turn away from. I can't not do it. When I went to Darfur, it was like, I don't know, something's pulling me. I couldn't not go. I didn't have the money to do it. I kind of raised it as I went. Same with Congo. Same when I got involved with some friends who were American servicemen and women who'd been in Iraq and Afghanistan, who were suffering mightily from combat PTSD, and I couldn't not, because it was so disturbing to see my friends suffering from this. I couldn't not do it. So what happens, and the same thing goes for driving around, seeing all the encampments in Los Angeles. Finally, I've been driving past them for 15 years, and finally I said, are you a human rights documentarian or are you not? Because there's more human rights violations going on 100 yards from our house than you've ever seen in Africa. So when a storyteller, I think, feels so compelled to tell a story that they can't not do it, that makes your storytelling better. That makes it makes you desperate to get it out in a way that folks will feel the same way you do. So some of the best reactions were screening to rooms full of veterans, many who had been experienced combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, or Vietnam even. I had many people come up to me after, scores of people come up to me after these screenings and just say, that's exactly how I felt. That's exactly what happens. Thank you for, now my wife was sitting there watching the film with me, and now she knows why I jump down on the sidewalk whenever I hear a loud noise. She thought I was crazy. Now she understands. I had great feedback on that. I've had people watch the first, because officially the film hasn't released yet, but the film, The Dirty Divide, about houselessness in Los Angeles, is really not about houselessness in Los Angeles. It's about driving by what we look at as spectral figures, thinking these folks emerging from tents and tarpaulins are ghosts and don't have stories, that they are people that no way they could have been sitting around a kitchen table 5 years ago with their kids. No way they ever got in a car and drove to work in the morning. No, the film I just finished is about people that we don't think are people. And in some of these screenings, I've had folks get up and literally in tears saying, I had no idea. I had no idea that someone sitting in Skid Row who emerged from underneath a tarp, not a tent, but a tarp, could play the guitar like that, could sing like that, that had worked for a major aerospace company 30 years ago and was like one of the first people to fly around the country teaching folks about technology. How could that person be in a tent, So it's amazing to get different reactions that I always hope for reactions, but I never really know what they're going to be. But to see folks feel like to be moved, that is the to move people should be the objective of storytelling. Get them to finish, yes, but be moved is what we want.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, and I can't wait to watch it. I will mention that everybody, and I'll put your website in the chat as well. It's paulfriedman.net, but all of your other documentaries are on there that people can check out, and
Yeah, please do.
yeah, and so as we wrap up here, I like to boil it down because we've talked about so much, and and a lot of people, I'm sure their heads are swimming. What are kind of three key points, or that you'd like people to remember as we go forward to tell our stories?
Yeah, I think in the same way that I've shared with you the log lines, I think if we, particularly when it comes to Rotary, and again, if I come back to Monterey or the next district area convention, and I get some new people introducing myself, and all of a sudden I hear these 3-sentence stories that are so powerful, it makes me want to go out and join. That's the goal. I think we can. Write your story out. Write your story in a paragraph or 5 pages, but boil it down to 3 sentences, and make it like a boom. Make it powerful. Lead with the most emotional part of your what you put on the page. Open with that sentence. Because that's how I work, and I think it works in any way, in a shape or form of storytelling, whether it be a musical arrangement or a movie or one of these log lines. I said that if I could suggest one thing, it would be really, what do I want to say, and how can I say it in the shortest way possible?
Sure. Thank you. I lied. One last really quick, first off, thank you for being with us today. And I think you've shared a lot of great information for everybody on, and hopefully we're able to help everybody on this webinar to become better storytellers in their Rotary and daily lives. And one more question before we get to a little bit of Q&A. Certainly, and this is the plant question that Paul and I have already talked about, you're certainly willing to work with any clubs, districts on a presentation or in other ways. So if they want to reach out to you, they can through your website, and we can go from there, right?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've been the pleasure before Moraga Rotary Club got involved in our library project. I was asked by them to do something very similar to this. They were working on an orphanage in Sierra Leone. This club is an amazing work they do. And they needed someone to go and get shots of what's going on in Sierra Leone and the orphan project, and we did that. And that was my introduction into Moraga Rotary, into Rotary Club in general, and specifically in this one project that they had done, which it was completed, and yeah, it was amazing.
Cool.
Oh, by the way, and on the website, feel free. All the films are up there, and they're free. Just click on them. You watch them online or your phone or.
Yep. Yeah, and they're and like you said, they're not 3, 4, 5 hours long. You've whittled it down to be as powerful as possible.
Yeah, but again, I'm a better storyteller now. Sand and Sorrow is too long. Halfway Home's too long. But I see the stuff in retrospect, so yeah, I'll still get better.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. And before I go to the Q&A, just for a second, thanks to everybody for being here today. Keep your eyes open for our next webinar. We're working on solidifying a date sometime late February, early March. And if you have any suggestions for success stories, best practices, topics you'd like us to cover, please let us know. And again, we will. Paul, The Dirty Divide, premiering at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And Paul, a couple other questions for you that have come in. After The Dirty Divide is released, how can people bring it to their communities for public viewings?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, the desire of any filmmaker is to get their work seen. and finished finished viewing. It's our hope to get some sort of distribution deal where we can get, rather than a few hundred people in a screening room, we'd rather get, thousands of people watching it in their living rooms, whether on a streaming service or a TV or some sort of theatrical release. That's the hope. I can certainly you'll keep track of that on our website. But in lieu of that, if somebody would like to arrange some sort of a screening, we're happy to do that. We've already looking at one in Portland coming in early March. If anybody who's interested in screening something, and again, I would say that you would probably have to be tied into the homeless organizing community in your community to give it some oomph. I think because I think the film can do good things, good work for people who are organizing to help homeless people. So if the Rotary Club is to get involved with a Salvation Army or somebody in your local community who's working with houseless folks, I think that would be a good way to present the film. Anyway, but please, just reach out to me.
Yeah. And you said as well, if somebody knows a, film festival.
Sure.
Them too.
Yep,
too.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then another question: have you ever, and this is from Bob McLean up in northern Minnesota, have you ever done any work on human trafficking related subjects?
No, but that's a great question. And by the way, my mom's from Two Harbors, so I've been up in Georgia many times. It's gorgeous. I did for the Merci Congo film. I was involved with some of the early organizations. I forget the name of the one. It's one of the first human rights organizations in the world in England. Talking about slavery and human trafficking. It's something that is the problem is getting more widespread, more cruel, and involving more and more people closer to home for us. That it's a brutal situation. I wish I had the resources to jump into that. That's just something that I would love to. I don't know how I would get that done right now. It takes so much to launch these things. So if you know somebody from a human resource that has some resources to do it, I'm all in. Thanks, Bob.
Spoken like a real documentary, filmmaker from one to the next. Hey, you got resources? Let's use them. Anybody else have any questions before we wrap this up in just a minute or two here? I haven't had any more but I did get a nice suggestion here, picking a date and having all the clubs team up with a local housing organization for a region-wide program with Paul's video. That could potentially work. So we'll try to figure something out there.
We also the film is being, I don't know when I find out, but being considered at the Minneapolis Film Festival coming up. So I would let everybody know about that if it gets in, hopefully.
At least for the few of us that are up here in my end of the world. Any other questions for Paul or about anything from what we've covered today? Great. Well, I hope everybody got something out of this today, and certainly we threw a lot at you. As I mentioned, we will send a follow-up email with the different links to the segment with Paul and the segment with the best practices and the full video, and then we'll also include the Regional Rotary Challenge documents and the slides for today as well. And certainly anytime you have any questions, please let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Our public image team is here ready and willing to serve. After all, that's what our role is supposed to be. So thank you all for attending. Paul, special thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope that the Dirty Divide goes far and wide from a distribution standpoint, because certainly while we don't see it in parts of our region, certainly up here in the north. Houselessness is a huge problem, and thank you for being willing to tell their stories to hopefully cause more people to act.
Thanks, Kyle.
And
Thanks,
with
everybody.
that,
I really
thanks to
appreciate
everybody
it.
for being here,
Yeah,
and
bless you.
we'll see you all next time.